Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rollsoundpodcast. I'm joined here, as always, with my host Phil. How you doing, Phil?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right, and we're joined by stand-up comedian and actor Jonesy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Shane and Phil, thank you so much for
Yeah,
having me.
Of course.
I'm very excited to meet your audience as well. Like you guys, I'm a big fan of movies, making movies, television, making
yeah,
television, all of that. And so I'm excited to have a conversation with you guys about that today.
yeah. So before we get started, you're kind of doing something similar to us. With this whole pandemic thing, we're sort of none of us really can work, and so you're working on a podcast of your own to try and keep your comedian career going, correct?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is sort of accessible to us is, making stuff in the privacy of our homes alone
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time, which is how I do my podcast. And I've kept that going throughout the pandemic. I don't have any auditions. I'm not shooting anything with friends these days. There's no stand-up comedy going on for the most part, other than some Zoom shows that I do occasionally. So it's been the podcast 5 days a week. Weird AF News is what it's called. And so I do three weird news stories from around the world every day, Monday through Friday. And on Friday, I do weird news only out of Florida. It's called Florida Fridays. And I don't know if you've ever sort of,
Florida man.
oh my goodness.
Oh,
I mean,
I
if you
love it.
haven't dipped into the weird pool of Florida yet, then please listen to a Friday episode that I put out, and you'll just like get a nice taste of the degenerate state of Florida, right?
Man, I
Great.
love Florida. It's
Oh,
such
I
a
love it too. I absolutely love it, and it's just such a crazy place. And so
Yeah.
I never run out of weird news from Florida. I tell you.
right.
Like, the
S- Sorry, what was that,
crazy.
Phil?
I was just gonna say, yeah, the craziest thing I've ever heard about Florida was that someone tried to rob a Wendy's with an alligator, like
Oh
holding
man.
an alligator, like as a gun at gunpoint. I forget the comedian's name, but he does a bit on it, and it's a true story, and it's just absolutely hilarious.
I mean, there's and there's alligator stories all over the place coming out of Florida, which and I just covered one on Friday. I did it. One of the segments was how it's alligator mating season, and they court in the month of April. There's courting going on, and so that means they're just having sex everywhere on front lawns, in the middle of the road and stuff. And I'm like, and then this goes on for 3 months. And I'm like, alligator mating season is 3 months. It's like if I
God.
left my home and saw alligators mating one day, I would leave the area forever. I'm not going
Yeah.
back. There's an alligator screwing on my lawn. I'm not staying here. And yet these
Yeah.
people in Florida live with this lifestyle. It just
Yeah.
blows me away. Absolutely
That's
blows me
that's
away.
a Tuesday for them.
Yeah,
That's a Tuesday. Exactly.
that's why people in Florida are so crazy, is because all the normal people are weeded out by the fucking alligators.
I think you're right because I think about this often, because I'm doing so much Florida news. I mean, every week, and I'm like, how do people still stay there? I think you nailed it, Shane. I think you
Yeah.
nailed it. I think the normal people go, well, this is ain't any kind of environment I can live in for more than a week. I am out of here with my family. And then other people go, yeah, you know what? Everybody's got a DUI. There's alligators screwing in my driveway. I think I can live with this. You're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like to start off the podcast every week with a filmmaking related pun. But I have to apologize to the audience because I couldn't think of one. I'm just not crafty enough to come up with
Oh,
one this week.
screw you. Screw you.
So that one
Yeah.
took me a while to come up with, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm proud
I
of
was,
it.
you almost got me because I was like, wait, Shane, I thought you said you had one ready. And then, son of a
Well,
bitch.
here's the thing: is I had a different one ready, but then I was like, because I was asking what I wanted to hear from Jonesy about his experiences on television, and I wanted to know what the craft services was like, and I was
Yeah.
like, I wonder if there's a pun that I could come up with to then segue into that question. So, that being said, Jonesy, what is the food like on the set of a show like Gotham or Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt?
Well, if you're working network TV,
Uh huh.
you're going to get the best of the best, the
Yeah,
cream of
the
the
union.
crop. Oh yeah, network TV is just great because they're just they have the biggest budgets. So craft services, for your listeners who don't know what that is, in addition to being like, let's talk about the crafty, right? So there's just crafty, right? So in addition to being fed like a king a couple of times on the set, and by the way, they have these very strict rules on if it's a union gig where they force you to eat at a certain time. They won't let you go a few hours without this meal. This is a scheduled meal, and because if they don't feed you at this time, they can be fined. So you might not even be hungry, and they'll be like, "You get over there and eat, asshole," because we're not paying $1,000 fine because you didn't sit down at that table. You get over there. I'm exaggerating, but it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But in addition to the food, the actual regular meals that they feed you quite frequently, they will carry around snacks, just trays of snacks just throughout the day. And just, I mean, I was on the set of Nurse Jackie. I remember we shot it at it was a carnival area. It was like an amusement park. And, employees just walking around with trays of like Shake Shack burgers and just like, "Hey, would you like a Shake Shack?" Really? Oh. Just hand him. I mean, I'm standing on set. I mean, this isn't even off the set. This is on set, walking around and with the trays of Shake Shack burgers. Just have one, man. Just like it. And then coming around later with sundaes on a tray. So in addition to that, there's a constant availability of what's called crafty, and so it'll be like a large table, sometimes a couple tables connected, and there's just snacks there. Okay, it's just all the snacks that you can imagine, that you can walk over there and get anything you want at any time of the day. And I mean, they got nature bars, all kinds of fresh fruit, any kind of coffee or beverage you can imagine. There'll be like pastries, small sandwiches, soups. There could be like little tacos or enchiladas. You don't know what's going to be available at the snack thing, and you can go over there at any time and just grab anything. I was on the set of Drunk History, and they brought over a food truck that served like this really, really just very specific weird ice cream. They just brought over this food truck making this. I mean, you can't imagine what they're making available on these sets. And the bigger the budget, the better options you get, the weirder you can even get. I mean, there'll be like a cotton candy machine. You're like, a cotton candy machine? How? It's like, no, we're doing it, man. They take that stuff very seriously. So it's one of the things I think about when I'm on a set like that is like, because you look around at some of the crew and you're like, wow, like a lot of overweight people working on these sets, and you're like, I understand why. You're sitting around for many hours and you got unlimited amounts of food being offered, and it's delicious. It can be a problem, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I need to join a union. I'm just, I'm listening to this milkshakes all around, and I'm like, man, the best I've gotten is Domino's on a set. And I'll just order some Domino's pizza and be like, there you go. A couple times some food trucks on some indie films, but that's about it.
I was on an indie film in Livingston last year, and the crafty was like, we didn't have like a lot, but we had a person who was like our personal chef, and she made us like the best, like for the last day of the shoot, we had like mashed potatoes and roast beef, and like I downed like 5 slices of roast beef within like 5 minutes.
Oh man, and then, you can always go back for more on these.
I know.
Stuff. It's like, oh man, it's unbelievable. How do you resist this rich food all day? Ooh boy, a lot of people getting gout on sets, I'd imagine.
But yeah.
How did you get gout? Well, they've served me delicious roast beef 5 times a day for a year.
I was on a shoot. Yeah, it was pretty tough. They had donuts and cinnamon rolls.
Oh God, the flash
sounds horrible.
Okay, so crafty aside, because obviously I asked the hard-hitting questions, and that was one of the most important things you need to know about a film set is what crafty they have. But I kind of wanted to hear about your creative influence on television television shows like that? Because you're a comedian, and obviously
Yeah.
that's part of why they hire you. So I'm
Sure.
sure Drunk History, you have maybe a little more leeway in what you say versus something like Gotham. So what sort of how much leeway do you have, and how much of the creative force are you on set versus the big head honchos that
Yeah.
are there?
Well, I mean, so on Drunk History, you actually don't have any creative input at all because
Okay.
the script is pre-recorded. So the drunk narrator has already recorded what they're saying. And then
Mhm.
you have to lip sync over those words, and you have to nail it. So you can't go off script at all. And as a comedian, writer, creator myself, one of the things I enjoy most is going off script. I think it's where I get into my most creative zones. And I don't know, maybe this is egotistical, but I always feel like I can contribute a better joke or bring a better idea to the things that I usually work on. Not to say that the writers don't blow me away, but more often than not, when I'm working on something, like I just always feel like, oh, I can, and I don't know, it's a challenge for me too. Like, how can I make this funnier? How can I bring something else to it? I'm always thinking that that's what's really fun for me I just don't want to spit out somebody's lines. You know what I mean? You can get anybody to do that. I feel like I bring something else, some other skills to a performance or a creation, a script, etc. Because of my own background in writing and creating comedy as a stand-up comic for 14 years. I know how to write jokes. I know how to pull something more out of a scene. I can do that. I always want to contribute more. And I guess it always depends on your director, where this goes. Some directors want to keep it close to script, and they don't invite any sort of improvisation whatsoever. And you have to do that. Sometimes there's not enough time to do that, because you will find yourself sometimes in a situation where, like, hey, let's do it as written, and then have a little fun. Do it how you want to do it. And if there's time for that, yeah. But if you're behind schedule, there's really no time to get cute and creative outside of just keeping to the script. That happens, and it depends on who you're working with as a director. 9 times out of 10, where that goes. I had a great experience working with Tina Fey on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Now she's someone who comes from, she's one of these Chicago people. She grew, she cut her teeth doing improv and writing over there. And so she knows the value of allowing a comedian to sort of bring their own thing to a scene. So working with her, it's one of those situations. Hey, do it as written a couple times, and then let's have some fun with it. Try something else. Do something, whatever you want. Which to some people would be a lot of pressure. The scene that I was in a big theater, and there was a lot of crew and cast in there, and so you're kind of on the spot. And you get someone like Tina Fey going, "Okay, do it as written. Okay, now do your own thing. Try something else. Do whatever you like to do. What you think is funny." And so, because she's like that, you'll get these other performances. I think you get more out of actors this way. And I certainly came through. The best moment I had on that whole project, I think, other than being alone with her for a couple hours in a sound booth after we shot, was in that scene. She says, "Do it as written." So then I do it, and then she goes, "Okay, now try something else." And she hadn't laughed at anything I did previously when I did it as written, but then I improv something, and you heard Tina just burst out, just herself, like really laugh at something that I did, and then everybody else laughed as well, because they were kind of relying on her input. She was kind of like the queen of that set as the executive producer, and so that was great. That moment came out of her just letting me have some fun, and that, I love that. And everybody wins, I think, when you do that. So that was great. I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I did.
Yeah.
Anything else about it?
Well, a follow-up question is, you say you're a writer of some sort. Have you ever written any films or short films or anything?
Oh,
or
yeah.
produced anything?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, if you go to my website, jonesy.com,
Mm-hmm.
there's a page called videos, and there's probably about, I don't know, 12 to 15 uh, pieces there that I wrote and directed and edited myself with some comedian friends of mine there. So you can see some of my work behind the camera and in front of the camera. All of them were written by me.
Mhm.
And I love doing that. I have a background in sketch writing. I took some courses in New York City at places like UCB and the People's Improv Theater, and I've grabbed hold of the camera myself and made some things. Yeah, so that if you guys want to check out some of that, most of it's all comedy. But yeah, I love that. I love that part of it.
Right.
I would love to. I always like I look at the career of Louis C.K., who started as a stand-up and then wrote for TV and then eventually was writing and shooting his own TV show. I look to his career as sort of like something. I've always looked at that as something to aspire to. I would love to write, shoot, and direct star in my own series.
Yeah.
I say I'd like to have the career of Louis if Louis didn't have any hands, because it was his hands that got him in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I do have aspirations to do that, and I've written some scripts that I would love to get produced. But it's a challenge for me as it is for you guys. Like at the end of the day, where do you get the money to make something on a bigger level? So
Yeah.
meanwhile, I just shoot these little videos that anybody can shoot on their phone and whatever. And I do what I can meanwhile.
Right on. Right on. So, on these bigger sets, I know a lot of my questions are sort of directed towards those. But hair and makeup. How much time do you spend getting, hair and makeup and your costume design, whatever costume design, and then how much do these people follow up while you're shooting to make sure you're all clean and not, getting crafty all over yourself?
Right. Well, of course, it depends on the project and what your character is. If you're working on a period piece, which I did on Drunk History, my episode takes place in 1919, and I was playing a baseball player. Everybody on the set's got to look like they're living in 1919, so that took a lot of work. There was a lot of pre-costumization going on, and then throughout the day, we were wearing some weird, uncomfortable things. Like the baseball outfit in 1919 featured some strange aspects to it. The socks were very weird, and they were oversized, and so it was a constant adjustment from wardrobe on set for all the ball players all day long, and that's just because that's just the nature of working with a period piece, I think. Back then too, there was a lot of even your suits. Everybody wore hats and ties. It was a lot more clothing, going on back then. So that was a day filled with people just kind of adjusting you. They just run up to you and grab you by the crotch and adjust you.
Yeah.
So the other thing but in general, I would say when it comes to that stuff, there still is a lot of attention being paid to it. And my opinion on this is that there's a lot of people on set, and when you're working on a big set, you find this, and you may agree. There's a lot of people trying to justify their positions. It's very specialized. So you have a scripty person. You have someone who handles hair, wardrobe. It down the line. There's people who their only job is to make sure that this plug is in the plug all day long. They watch that plug and make sure it doesn't come out of the plug. It's very specialized. The more, the bigger the budget and the bigger the set. And these people really are getting paid quite a bit, and they feel as though they have to justify their job by doing it as often as possible. So in my opinion, there's a lot of, there's too much helicopter work going on there where my hair's fine. Okay. I have a very simple haircut. You don't need to come and adjust and touch my hair 100 times on set. But I've had experiences like that, and I get the impression sometimes that they just want to, they're just very, let me justify my job by doing it too much. And it kind of, I mean, I don't know, you're not going to hear this from somebody else. It's just my thing. It's an observation I had, but I just think it's too much. I don't think it's necessary to have to spend that much time on my hair and makeup and make sure my outfit is like blah blah blah. But I get it. People are, you know, people want to make sure everything on the screen is perfect, you know, and you know, they don't want to have an incident like on Game of Thrones when there's a water bottle in the shot. You know, I get it, but
I still think that was done on purpose, by the way.
it could have been
the water bottle or Starbucks.
Yeah, but like you know,
both probably.
If you're playing a burlesque dancer and you have to have an outfit and your hair's like big and it's complicated, then yeah, be with that person on set and making sure that's perfect. But someone like me, I mean, I've been instances where I'm like, you don't need to keep touching me, and you know what I mean? Like I have I'm just a boy, man. I'm just a guy. I got a simple guy haircut. All right, I don't need to be micromanaged. That's always something I thought was overdone on sets.
I'm sure part of it is like just that mindset of like, oh, a lot of people are working and I'm just sitting down waiting for my next actor to come in for makeup or whatever. So they're just trying to stay busy. Like
they're trying to stay busy. They don't
want to get yelled at.
But meanwhile, I mean, how many times can you get your hair brushed before it starts falling out? I'm like, easy, all right. I got, you know, I'm trying to keep this hair. Stop pulling on it. It looks great, man. Like I want to look good. I'm constantly checking myself out. I'm on top of it. But that's just my bag. That's just my little paranoia, insecure, whatever you want to call it. Something that I noticed that I thought was like overdone.
Right. So out of all of the projects that you've worked on, whether it be stand-up comedians or your stand-up show or a just a little short sketch that you've done or a short film or a TV show, what was your favorite thing overall that you've done?
Geez, what was the favorite thing that I did?
Yeah, tough question, huh?
Yeah. Super tough question.
Told you, hard-hitting journalist here.
I mean, other than the podcast, which that seems to be the thing that I enjoy most these days. I tell you, it's the thing that's got the most response. I've never thought in a million years I would have people emailing me from all over the world telling me that this thing that I've done has got them through a death of a loved one, a drug rehab, or, you know, like I'm getting messages from people saying that this podcast has touched their lives and got them through something. Like no one's ever wrote me and like, hey, you know what, Jonesy, I just want to say the joke you did about your nut allergy, you know, helped me get through my grandfather's passing. And like no one's ever done that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, no one's ever like, your performance on Gotham is something I watch over and over again, and it helped me get through my divorce.
Yeah.
If I feel like I know you, and
gotta watch out for the people.
I think it's because I do the podcast 5 days a week that I become some like your friend kind of. I'm in your home 5 days a week, or I'm with you while you commute to work 5 days a week, or whatever it is that you're doing. And also on the podcast, unlike on a role that I play on a show where I'm not even myself, I'm not speaking my own words. On the podcast, I say what I feel and what I think and my point of view of the world. I share my opinions. I share personal stories about my life on there if it relates to a story that I'm doing on the show, and people get to really know me as a person on there. So I think it touches them more that way. Outside of the podcast, I did another thing that I really loved, and I'm going to do it again sometime as soon as live performances come back. It's probably something you guys don't know that I've done, because it really wasn't, I didn't do it too many times. I've done this performance about 6 times. I did a one-man show. It began in New York City, and it's about my time when I went to Peru and I took ayahuasca for 10 days at an ayahuasca retreat. And then I wrote and performed this one-man show about it called Puke Bucket, a comedian's ayahuasca journey. And it's called Puke Bucket because I don't know if your listeners know this, but when you take ayahuasca, you throw up for hours and hours, and they give you your own personal puke bucket to do that in. So I did this 1 hour, one-man show about it, and it's hilarious. It's just a funny, I take you through the whole 10 days of me going down to Peru and taking this powerful psychedelic beverage with shamans and other people from around the world, and it's something that I'm very proud of. It's very unique, and it's something that I'd like to get back and do again someday, revitalize it, because it's been a couple of years since I've done that performance. It's even something I'd consider doing at like the Edinburgh Fringe Festival or something. It's that kind of thing. It has legs too. I think I can take it somewhere, and people are very curious about this ayahuasca. So when I do it, people are very into it, and they ask me a lot of questions after it. And that's when I knew I was onto something, because I get so many questions after it. They wanted to know, was it really true? And people are kind of fascinated by this thing. So yeah, that's something I would love to do again.
Interesting. What about making it into a film? Would that be something you'd be interested in doing, or is it definitely like a one-man?
It totally has the structure. You would just have to tweak it a little bit. It totally could be a film. Absolutely. And I've thought about that as well. I'm like, well, this is something. I think I'm onto something. I'm acting out all the characters that were in the ayahuasca retreat with me, and I'm going through the motions. I'm telling a story that would totally translate, I think, to a film, an indie film. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so I was listening to that, and I was like, telling stories is kind of what we do, and that sounded like an interesting story. So I just thought, if at some point this corona dies down, that's definitely something. If you do proceed to make it, I would love to hear or see whatever film or one-man show that you've got going on.
Oh yeah, so. Surely. When this thing opens up, I got a bunch of projects that I'd like to get back to. I miss shooting things with my friends. You'll see on my website those videos I shot. I used a lot of the same funny actor comedian friends of mine in LA. And I haven't seen these people in months, and I just miss that. I miss that collaboration with my funny friends.
Actually, I have a question for you, Jonesy.
Sure.
One of my biggest fears, because I'm almost a couple days away, fingers crossed, from graduating college in film, and one of the biggest fears I've had on a film set is say on a union set, speaking outside of your department, saying, like, the sound guy saying something to the camera guy that he's trying to be
suggesting a shot to the DP when you're like a
exactly
PA.
or like the universal story that like an intern or like a PA came up to Steven Spielberg and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know you're doing a great job, and I respect you so much." And then Steven Spielberg fired that guy because he was on his lunch break. How often does that happen on set? That's just
I can't. I've never witnessed anything like that. I can't say. My opinion on all of that is that it varies from set to set, and these sets typically will reflect the personality of the director, who's really the captain of the ship. So if you have a director that's an all-inclusive, cool person who enjoys collaboration from all angles, all departments, all personalities, then that person will be open to hearing from anybody, from any department, whether it's the special effects department, the sound people, all the way down to perhaps even the PA. It takes somebody without an ego to do such things. In my opinion, it's a better way to create, is to listen to the opinions of others, and not to say that you have to go by anybody, but if you have a set where people are comfortable making suggestions, I think that it's you can only win from that. Aren't we at the end of the day trying to make the best thing possible as a team?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
In my opinion, it's a better way to do it. But you do hear these stories. The Spielberg one that you mentioned, I had never heard that, but
I don't know if that's a real story though.
I can't
think
confirm it, but
more of a folktale kind of thing.
I 100% agree, but it's like everybody in my school has heard it, that story,
right?
And it's just
every young filmmaker has heard that story. that reminds me of another question I wanted to ask you, Jonesy, is have you ever considered being in more dramatic roles or more serious roles on television or anything like that?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm very into it, and I've done some very serious stuff. I was in a movie that we shot in Palm Springs 2 summers ago. That it was a very serious movie where I played someone who was, I was taken hostage and I was beat up and I had to break out of the back of a truck or a trunk of a car rather, and I had to hold a gun and shoot somebody and I had to fight and take a punch or two, and like it was very very serious stuff. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. Action for me, that was amazing. I loved it. I did a short film at around the same time where I played somebody who was a killer. My girlfriend and I, we killed a young boy and ate him and fed him to a friend of mine.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Sounds
sure.
like a classic rom-com, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, classic rom-com. You know how that goes.
Your classic feel-good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that stuff as well. And I have a gift for that. I can act, man. And it doesn't have to be comedy. I can do very serious stuff and I enjoy it. I really, really enjoy it. And there's not a lot of comedy being made as you would think, so I learned right away as an actor when I moved to New York City and I began auditioning that, I thought, hey, I'm a comedian and I got an agent and I'm going to be auditioning for roles on film and TV and commercials, etc. And I thought, well, they know I'm a comedian. It'll be all comedy. And I quickly realized that no, comedy was, maybe 1/6 of my auditions would be comedy. The rest of it was, how many crime shows are being shot these days? I was always going on auditions for crime shows. I thought I wanted to say funny things, and instead my line would be something like, I don't know nothing about no missing dolphin, and it was always stuff like that. I'm always being questioned by the police. I realized right away there was a lot of those sorts of roles because apparently, I look like I know something about local crime, that's why, and at the same time, I must look like I don't want to tell the police about it, so that's why I'm being questioned. So there was a lot of that going down. So if you want to be an actor and you say to yourself, no, I'm only doing comedy, I think you're limiting yourself because there's just not a lot of it being made, which is understandable because comedy is very specific. You have to have a shared dictionary to be able to take in comedy. And if we don't have a shared dictionary, then you're not going to understand the jokes. And when I mean dictionary, I just don't mean the words that I'm saying, the language that I'm speaking. I mean cultural references as well. It's comedy is very culture specific. And as somebody who's done stand-up comedy in Asia, I can tell you, like, there is not a lot of crossover between the stand-up I do in the U.S. and when I leave the U.S. So I have to write all new material. And as you know, when it comes to making films, like wanting to sell your film internationally, that's a huge revenue stream for these films, and the films they're costing upwards of 100 to 300 million to make. You have to recoup that money. A lot of it is recouped overseas. And so if you're making a comedy that can't be appreciated in Japan or China or even France, what are you doing? How are you going to get your project funded when you can't show them that you have other ways of bringing in money? This is why comedy films aren't made as much as they used to be, because they really only can be seen in the US. That's where we're going to get the jokes. That's where we get the cultural references. And outside of that, it's really hard to sell unless you're doing slapstick comedy. That's why anyone can watch The Three Stooges or a Charlie Chaplin film anywhere and get it and laugh about it.
Yeah. Man, I just recently watched The Great Dictator again. It's still hilarious. It's
so
still
fantastic. And like, can't you enjoy that if you're a European person? Yeah, you can. Yeah. Even if you're Asian, I think. And, you don't really get that with these. So if you want to be an actor and you say to yourself, I just want to do comedy movies and comedy TV, well, you'll work, but you won't, I don't know, can you make a living? I think you're really limiting yourself. And by the way, for those of you who are listening who are actors that just do comedy, like, do drama, man, do action. Like, you have no idea how much fun that is, man. Comedy, the sitting around and talking really gets dull. break out of a trunk and punch somebody in the face, man. Like, get blood all over you, get dirty. Shit is so fun, man.
Can we just clip that part right there? Jonesy's advice to actors is break out of a trunk and punch people in the face.
First job, get inside of a trunk.
Yeah, man.
Next job.
And if you go to my YouTube channel, which is Funny Jones, you'll or even my Instagram, Funny Jones, I have a lot of clips of me acting in some of these serious projects. You can watch these clips. I'm having a ball, man. I'm having so much fun, really, running around and shooting a gun and being handcuffed. Like, what a good time that is. You know, at the end of the day, I really love like playing make believe and being other people. That's what acting is. That's one of the thrills of acting, is being other people. And so why not be as many different people as you can, and you know, have a good time with it.
Yeah.
Right on. So I think we'll wrap it up here. But before we go, Jonesy, where can we find your podcast specifically? What are all the platforms it's on?
It's on every platform. If you just search for Weird AF, A as in Apple, F as in Frank, News, Weird AF News, you can find it on every platform. It's out there. And I even have a YouTube channel for it, Weird AF News. It's on all the social medias too, Weird AF News. And you can follow me on Instagram at Funny Jones. I'm more active on there than any other platform. And I do updates about shows that I do. I put clips of my from my acting career on there, clips of my stand-up, information about the podcast on there. Basically, everything that I'm up to is on the Instagram. Right now, unfortunately, no live shows, so I won't be coming to an area near you. But I did a live stream show for the Laugh Factory last week in Hollywood, so that was streamed out to their Instagram channel and their YouTube as well. I'll be doing that again, and I'll post that on Instagram. I did a Zoom show, a comedy show last night, and I did one on Saturday night as well, and I always will put a link to that. It's a different kind of comedy experience to watch comedians do jokes to their camera in their living room, but it's somewhat enjoyable on some level, I guess, and they're usually free. So
when you're stuck at home.
When you're stuck at home, I mean, a lot of us are looking for new content, and so give one of these live stream comedy shows a shot, and see if you might find it, you might get something out of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, right on. All right. So I think that's all for today. Thank you for coming on, Jonesy.
Oh, thank you for having me, Shane and Phil. I'm very flattered that you want to be on your show. I hope your audience was entertained and learned something and got something out of this episode. If any questions at all, they can email me, funnyjones@gmail.com, or reach out to me on social media as well. I'll answer whatever questions people have about podcasting, about acting, about Los Angeles and Hollywood. Whatever information I have, I'm willing to share to people who are curious. No problem at all.
Hey guys, I'm going to interrupt the podcast now to remind you guys to like and share the podcast and follow it wherever you're listening. The more followers and the more listeners we have, the easier it's going to be to find people to talk to. So far, we've found some pretty awesome people to talk to, and I think we're going to be able to keep doing that, but it definitely doesn't hurt, especially if you are somebody who wants to hop on the podcast and talk to us for a little bit. We'd super duper appreciate that. If you've got any story to tell about your filmmaking experiences, we'd love to hear it. So also make sure to follow Jonesy's podcast. It is actually super entertaining. I gave it a little bit of a listen, and I do actually quite enjoy it. We'll make sure there's a link for his podcast in the description as well. So now we're going to move on to the short film section. Unfortunately, Jonesy wasn't able to stick around for that part, so I hope you guys enjoy. The gunman, right? That's what it's called? Gunfighter. 'Twas funny as hell.
It was some good shit right there. Yeah. So,
I like how the YouTube video is titled "Funniest Short Film" or whatever. What is it? Hang on. I need to go pull it up real quick. The Gunfighter. What is it? Oh, maybe it's not. Maybe I lied. Where did I see that? Anyways,
Yeah.
so The Gunfighter. It's a short film that definitely had a bigger budget. Normally I like to go for those little budgets, but it was just really funny, and especially kind of fits because we didn't know that Jonesy was going to be on as our guest when I picked this, but then he emailed me and it's really fitting for it. By the way, I just noticed that it's got an opening shot that's like a full-on town. I didn't notice that before.
I'm fairly certain this was shot somewhere like I'm guessing the same western lot that Westworld is shot in, because the bar is almost identical to the Westworld
Probably
location,
honestly.
in the whorehouse, because like just imagine there's an organ playing or whatever. But yeah, it's
Right.
there's like a Universal lot, and then there's like a couple other Western lots around that could easily be what this place is.
Right. So it's definitely filmed on a lot rather than a soundstage, probably.
For sure. I mean, yeah.
Because see, I would have assumed that it was shot on a soundstage, honestly, but
I mean,
I
this
didn't notice
might,
that first shot, so I don't know.
I honestly, I mean, like, yeah, I'd say it's not that much different from a soundstage when you have like a whole like 4 or 5 blocks with nobody talking.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
So what do you think about the short film?
I really like the lighting. Because the gunfighter, air quotes, the gunfighter, he's, I don't know if you noticed, but he's just got like a spotlight of golden light coming down, which I really appreciate. And then everything's really smooth. There's no super harsh shadows. They clearly knew what they were doing, but they didn't like flatten out the face too much either. The light coming through the windows.
Reminds me of The Hateful Eight, even though this movie was probably before The Hateful Eight.
I don't know, man. The Hateful Eight.
The lighting reminds me of the lighting of this short film reminds me of The Hateful Eight.
I'm trying to remember the Hateful Eight lighting. I want to say the Hateful Eight had a bit more harsh shadows in a few places.
The Hateful Eight had on every single table inside that little hotel that they had, there was a spotlight beaming down directly on every single table.
Right.
Had that harsh lighting.
Yeah.
But that's probably an allusion to some other Western short film or Western movie that I've never seen.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
3 Westerns.
I'm sure it's a reference for something. But yeah, I think the acting. Yep. All of a sudden, I can't talk. The acting.
All of a sudden, I don't know what you're talking
was super duper spot on.
Yeah.
Everyone was super well casted.
Yeah, it kind of feels like this was like a like a mid-tier high production. Like not all of these guys are like well known, but like see the bartender, he's from a bunch of stuff. He's the bad guy in Community. He's Dean like whatever, Dean College or whatever.
I have not seen Community.
Oh, you should. Nick Offerman's in it, so it's like
Nick Offerman.
It's no small independent production, but it's also like not bad.
Yeah, I mean, like you could probably shoot without obviously the celebrities. And depending on how much it would cost to shoot on a soundstage, you know.
Oh, this is definitely like if we're talking about things like if we wanted to recreate this is definitely doable.
Yeah,
really,
absolutely.
Like go to Bannock, Ghost Town, and Dillon, get one of those places to shoot in. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, well, and I think what they probably spent the most money on was lighting equipment. Like you can absolutely tell, you know. I would be surprised if they didn't have just like an 8x8 diffuser off the shot on every single one of these shots. You know, it probably took a couple of days to 3 days to shoot just because every shot is so well lit, and you can tell they took so much time lighting it up like that.
Well, you think 3 days, but I imagine I mean, this is shot pretty nicely. I imagine that they had some pretty good professionals on set. So it's hard to say it
Yeah.
would take 3 days.
I'm just thinking, obviously they had some good professionals who knew what they're doing, but depending on, I guess, what the budget was, they might not have had a lot of extra hands, so the professionals might have had to move everything and set everything up themselves, like they do on every set, but they didn't have the help to do everything. You know what I mean?
Putting production aside, this kind of like short film story is like something I've always really wanted to see. Is like someone, like the whole all characters acknowledging the narrating ominous voice in the background and like reacting to it. So I think it's pretty neat. Like a story idea.
It's definitely a good story, all in one room. It's not super complex. It's just funny. It's like a nice look into like what people are thinking. Because the voice knows all. Nick Offerman is God in this.
I don't know, he's God.
This have you ever played the video game Stanley Parable?
No.
Oh my God. So the Stanley Parable is a lot like this, and that's one of these had to have been inspired by the other, but I don't know which one came out first. But the Stanley Parable is this video game where you are just a person and you start out in an office and there's a narrator talking about what you're doing to go throughout your day, and the narrator's like, and then the Stanley gets up and he goes out to go get a drink of water, and you go out and the narrator's like, but isn't this weird? Nobody's here. The whole building is empty. He walks down the hallway and into the bathroom. But then you walk down the hallway and you just walk right by the bathroom, and the narrator's like, gets obviously frustrated, and then eventually just breaks character altogether and is like, look, I'm telling you exactly where to go. You need to do exactly what I need you to do. And you just, and there's like 13 different endings where you can just fuck with this guy and just do different things, and he gets really pissed, and like you can break your way out and into like the behind the scenes of the building you're in with the narrator and stuff, and it's good.
So the narrator's yelling at you.
Yeah, he's trying to guide you through things, but you keep messing it up. Or not. I think there's one of the endings is you just follow through, and I think it's just like a super mundane whatever. It's really funny. It's a hilarious game. It's one of the funniest video games I've ever played, and this reminds me of it.
This reminds me of the first short films I watched, like when I was really getting into film, and maybe we can have this one as the next one. But it's it plays along with like that heavy kicking ending. Like I think a lot of really good short films really have that really like thought-provoking or funny or just like that really hard cutting ending to it. Like there's always maybe a major twist. And I can't remember the sequel to it, but I think the first version of the short film this guy made was called Spider, and it's quite good. But it's similar in this vein that it's like I'm trying to see if I can find it so we know what it's called. Shoot, curious. I'm gonna have to find it. Maybe it doesn't have to be because we just don't have a.
So, do you have a short film for this week? Did you think of any?
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I have one, but it's I can't. Oh yeah, it is. All right, cool. It's just the art design they had for the cover was misleading. From what I've seen, but it's called Spider. There's a link on YouTube. It says it came out in 2008. And yeah, it's a really good like hooking ending. Yeah, and the sequel is called Bear. It's a very like it has a really nice
by Nash Edgerton.
Maybe.
Because there's also Lucas the Spider.
No,
he's so cute, man.
Yeah. Nash Edgerton. Yep, Nash Edgerton. That's
And it's
correct.
got the thumbnail is like a picture of a woman like screaming with her
Yep.
hand on her chest. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I watched a short film when I attended the summer camp, the New York Film Academy
Mm-hmm.
summer camp. We watched this one and broke it down. It's really good. But yeah, yeah, I thought the gunfighter was pretty funny. I think.
Yeah. It was definitely sort of a solid, very stark change from our last two, which are
Yeah.
kind of serious, and then this one's just sort of like a lighthearted
Yeah.
joke, as it were. So yeah, I appreciated it. I just because I have a whole playlist, and by the way, I'm making a playlist.
Oh yeah.
On the Rolling Sound podcast YouTube channel for those who want to know. And it's going to be all the short films we are watching every week in order. So if you want to go through and rewatch old short films, or if you want to, if you're like, I wonder what the latest short film I'm supposed to be watching to keep up with the podcast is, it's the last one he added to the playlist.
Yeah.
So
It's a good idea.
so yeah, so that's a thing. So YouTube channel link in the description, obviously. So yeah. So there you go. The gunfighter. I liked it. Oh, couple of shots that I really appreciated. When everyone shoots each other, spoilers. When everybody kills each other, there's a blood splat on screen. When the bartender gets shot, so like they're shooting like back behind the bartender, and he gets shot. There's a blood splat, which I really appreciated. And then there was another shot, and now I can't remember what it was.
Was it a blood splat, like an After Effects blood splatter, or was it a
Oh
straight
yeah.
blood splat?
Oh yeah, no, there was no way that wasn't just After Effects, but it was done well, and it was such a quick shot that you like don't really notice. Oh, and the other thing in that shootout is, if you notice, every single one of those people, you have a shot of every single one of those people dying, except for the whore. She just, for the shot that she is in, she's just standing there shooting with two guns. And that's all she's doing. So I just thought that was a nice little tidbit, is that she doesn't actually, you don't see her pretend to die. You don't see any of that. Everything is super fast cut. And then all of a sudden she's just on the ground, and then she sits back up and yada, yada, yada. So I don't know. I just appreciated it. There was a lot of hidden things in that part of the movie.
Yeah.
So.
Damn, I'm trying to figure out where this place is. But yeah. I see that. Is you're talking about the blood splatter on the lens, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that could be real. I mean, might as well just waste a good cine lens for some blood.
Well, if they wanted to do that for
Just
real, they would put a
in
thing
front
of plexiglass in front of it.
Yeah.
But but that's the thing, is like, I wouldn't be surprised if that were shot with like, a sort of mid-range camera. I don't think it is. I'm sure they shot with like an Alexa. Definitely looked like it.
I mean, like I'm watching on 720, and like the quality is still very nice. Like,
yeah, but
all the colors like work out.
well, when did it come out?
2016.
2016.
Well, it's all right. Let's be clear here. It was released on the Magnet Film short film YouTube channel on 2016.
Okay,
2016 doesn't necessarily mean it could have been made like 6 months, released 6 months prior. It was just going to film festivals or whatever.
Just because nowadays it's you could shoot something like that on like a little Sony DSLR. It's not. I don't know what the exact difference would be. There's definitely dynamic range is the big.
Yeah, 36 megapixel dynamic range.
Yes. Sony cameras only have 32 megapixels of dynamic range. Yep, because that's how it works, and it really hurts my soul. You're gonna make me cry again, Phil. Oh, that really hurt. You know that? It's for context, people, a couple weeks ago before we started, Phil and I were talking about a camera, and he accidentally said 32 megapixels of dynamic range.
I said 36 megapixels of
whatever,
dynamic range.
30, whatever. That's not, megapixels and dynamic range are not the same thing at all.
I feel like I should know this because I have a photo major, but whatever.
But anyways,
no, yeah.
so there you go. There's
Alright.
this week's podcast. Super
Alright.
awesome. I'm happy with it.
If it is Zane, goodbye.
The end.
So long, farewell. Avidas and Zane.